And in China, they say a really good quote: I don't care if the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. And what that means is practicality. So we can have grand philosophical ideas about the way that we want the world to be, which is fantastic. But more important than that is practicality. How do we make change on the ground? We'll start with one cold, hard fact. And that is, in the past 40 years, China has taken 800 million people out of extreme poverty. You don't know which company you're working for. They won't advertise the wage. You don't know the wage of the company that you're working for. They won't advertise the location. They'll give a broad location such as London, so you don't even know where you're working. This systematic humiliation of unemployed people is the lack of the government's decision making. If we're going to talk specifics, China has the tallest bridge in the world. China has quite few of the longest tunnels in the world. China has more high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined.
Del, thank you for being on the show with us today, man. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Let's jump right into it. So for those who don't know you, you're a political activist, you're involved in local communities across London. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Del, full name Deren Mehmet, but for the purposes of this interview, as you're my friend, you can call me Del. I'm from South East London, born and raised. My ethnic heritage is from Cyprus. So basically, who I am and who we are as people is we're sons of immigrants, born and raised in South East London. We call London our home, we call Britain our home, and we've been going through the journey of life all the way up until uni, where we graduated and we're hustling. So I've been in sales for the past 10 years. I've owned my own business, multiple businesses actually. And throughout this process, you always revert to what you really think about. And what that is politics. So I've got a master's in political philosophy. When you ask me who am I, I'll say that's a big part of my identity. Although we've been going through life and trying our best to make things work, as I said, we revert back to politics. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try our best to go 110% to make a change in the political realm.
Okay, it's grand. I like it, man. I like it.
We're trying.
So on the topic of political philosophy, obviously we've spoken a little bit off camera, so I know a little bit about some of the countries and ideas that inspire you. But could you talk to us a little bit, maybe China, maybe there's a particular thinker that jumps to mind immediately, like what exactly is the bedrock of your beliefs, or maybe some of your core beliefs?
Okay, so you're speaking of China, and in China they say a really good quote: I don't care if the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. And what that means is practicality. So we can have grand philosophical ideas about the way that we want the world to be, which is fantastic. But more important than that is practicality. How do we make change on the ground? And you mentioned China, so we'll stick on the China topic. We'll start with one cold, hard fact. And that is, in the past 40 years, China has taken 800 million people out of extreme poverty. Right? So imagine everybody currently in the US and everybody currently in the EU, put them all together, that's 800 million people. China took that many people out of extreme poverty in 40 years. So I'll revert back to my original point, practicality. Whether you believe in the Chinese political system or don't believe in the Chinese political system, there's one cold hard fact. The Chinese political system has worked for hundreds of millions of people across China. So now you look at Western economies, you look at Western nations. I went to New York not too long ago. It's filthy. You go to California, there's homelessness everywhere. They say that England is broken. I don't really agree, but we have our problems. There's problems in the suburbs of France. There's problems in the suburbs of Italy. So irrespective of what philosophical idea you have, the facts are these. China is making strides in developing their economy and developing the welfare of their own people. And in the West, we're falling behind. So what I concentrate on is why, how that's happened, and maybe how we could make some changes in the West to improve the lives of everyday people like ourselves.
Okay. I mean, look, I've heard people on the left before big up China. I feel like it's probably the left-wing example when it comes to maybe not fully alternatives to capitalism, but what capitalism could be if the state invested more in terms of welfare. For the sake of, devil's advocate, what would you perhaps say to the people who push back and say, well, most people wouldn't want to live like the average Chinese person. They say the Western quality of life, despite the greater inequality, is typically better. What would your response to that be?
Okay, well, first I'd like to know the age of these people, because if these people were 40, 50 and above in the UK, they would know from first-hand experience how our country has declined, how the amount of hours they would need to put in to purchase a house, to purchase, well, not a phone back then, but to purchase some building works or to own a building or to open a business. The amount of hours that you'd need to work in order to achieve that was significantly less then than it is now. So we've seen our real standards drop in this country. And I'm 30 years old, for example. In my lifetime, we've seen our standards drop in this country. And China's been the complete opposite. So people can be vocal about not wanting to live under the Chinese system. That's fine. But they can't deny that we could learn something from the Chinese in terms of empowering people. So it's not just the Chinese. It's the Singaporean economy that's done fantastically well. Singapore was an incredibly poor place just 50 years ago. In a generation, they've become an unbelievably significant country for their size. They've empowered their people. People have climbed out of poverty. And Singapore is known as a global hub now, a small island in Asia. Now, the questions are, how did they do it? And these are the questions, well, the answers to these questions is what we need to implement into the UK. I'll go actually a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah.
So right now, in England, if you're looking for a job, you're an 18-year-old guy or girl looking for a job. You go onto LinkedIn, you go onto Indeed, you go onto all of the typical job websites. You'll see a job. The job is advertised by a recruiter. Therefore, you don't know which company you're working for. They won't advertise the wage. You don't know the wage of the company that you're working for. They won't advertise the location. They'll give a broad location such as London. So you don't even know where you're working. This systematic humiliation of unemployed people is the lack of the government's decision making. And it's these types of decisions that the Chinese government enforces very quickly. Now, you may say this on the flip side, if they make a bad decision, then it's enforced quickly as well. But by and large, they've made decisions which are beneficial for their own people. So I've just given you one example of how the government doesn't step in. I'll give you another example of how the government doesn't step in. HS2. They estimate that HS2 from start to finish, from planning to development to finish, will take around 30 years. China could do that railway in a year. So this country is not taking decisive actions on the things that people really need, the infrastructure that people need, the skills that people need to learn in order to help their people grow and invest in their own people. So that's unfortunately, the cold hard facts about which direction we've been going in for the past 30, 40 years in this country.
So in terms of things that the UK could take from China, like what specifically would you say would it be that government investment into housing, infrastructure, education, like we're saying, like public railways, like what specifically would you say UK needs to take from China?
Okay, that's a great question. So, as I said, in 40 years, 800 million people have climbed out of extreme poverty in China. 3/4 of the world's poverty reduction happened in China specifically. How did they do that is the question that you're asking. So when people come from the rural sector into the more financialized and commercial sector, they pay more taxes. Not only do they earn more, but they contribute more to the system. Once that money is in the pot, there's a divergence between what the Western economies do and what the Eastern economies do. The Eastern economies, when I say Eastern, I mean China specifically, they invest in infrastructure so that their people are allowed to contribute to the economy more, and just from a moral perspective, to help them flourish in life. Now, unfortunately, the Western system has imposed austerity and basically just fumbled that money. So if we're going to talk specifics, China has the tallest bridge in the world. China has quite few of the longest tunnels in the world. China has more high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined. So what is all of this? It's infrastructural development. Chinese taxpayers have paid their taxes into the UK government. Chinese taxpayers have paid it into the Chinese government. The Chinese government has used that money to invest in infrastructure. That infrastructure, in turn, is an investment in the economy, which will wrap back round and will increase the amount of taxes that Chinese people pay because they're working more jobs, they're investing more in the economy. So infrastructure is a huge one. Another one is obviously housing. I mean, China had a problem that they built too many houses. So you've heard of all of these ghost towns. Although that's not really legitimate, it's not kind of the whole story. But there aren't people in China that are homeless because of a lack of housing. That is the problem in the UK. So investing in infrastructure, investing in housing, investing in people. So for example, there were so many people in poverty in China that the Chinese government had to come up with a plan on how do we fix this. So the Chinese government sent 3 million ministers, government ministers, to live in rural towns. And they identified exactly which regions and exactly which houses were poor. It was the minister's job to go to that person and help them develop their skills. Why are you poor? Why are you struggling? My mum's ill. Okay, I have health issues. Okay, I'm unskilled. Okay, so they provide sustenance and they provide the necessary support in order for that person to flourish. So let's say, for instance, if this person in this rural area has a healthcare issue, they will get free healthcare from the government. So it's a customizable plan. We have a one-size-fits-all. You would never in the UK hear that government ministers are moving up to Stoke or government ministers are moving down to Hastings in order to help people. They go there, they live there, and the job's not done until everybody in that area is alleviated from poverty. So in a nutshell, infrastructural development, housing, and building real-world skills for real-world people.
Okay, that will make sense to me. In terms of celebrating China and the strides they've taken to take people out of poverty, how would you respond to the criticism which is levied at a lot of people who support China in that perhaps we overlook some of the bad things China had to do in their great leap forward to get to where they are today?
Well, I'm not here supporting China. I'm not saying China is the best country in the world. What I'm saying is our economy is under strain. We have fumbled our economy. We're one of the richest countries in the world. We took wealth from everywhere in the world, and where's that money gone? It's gone into the hands of the elite, right? China doesn't allow that. And we've seen them not allow that, and we've seen the consequences of them not allowing that. We don't see this kind of exuberant wealth and these conglomerates in China have the power there that we do in England. So if we can take bits from other countries, if we can take the economic model of China, and we can take the liberalism model from Germany, and we can take the technology model from Japan, this is what we need to do as a nation in order to grow and develop, because we're behind right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that I support China. It doesn't necessarily mean that I endorse everything that China does.
Yeah.
China should rightly, like any other nation on earth, be criticized. But if they are to be criticized for what they've done wrong, they should also be endorsed for what they've done right. And what I'm saying here is, not only have they done right in regards to the economy, they've done the quickest economic poverty alleviation program in history since the beginning of time. I'm going to say it once again, 800 million people out of poverty in 40 years. No one has ever seen anything like that. What does that mean? It means they're doing something right. And if they're doing something right, we need to learn from it. We can't be as arrogant to say, but they're doing this wrong, but they're doing that wrong. Every country does things wrong. What are they doing right? How can we learn from them? Okay.
Well, in terms of that, to give you more of the typical pushback here for a little while longer, how would you fund it? Would it be a wealth tax? Would you just increase general taxes on the working and middle class? In your world, how would you envision us getting there?
Well, the problem is, it's not as easy as everybody says. That's the first thing. It's not just raise taxes, everything's fine. It's not as easy as that, and it's also not the opposite. It's not just austerity, cut money. We're in a bad situation. We've had, correct me if I'm wrong, 14, 15 years of Tory rule, and now we've had the Labour government under Starmer and now Andy Burnham. It's been a roller coaster, but the roller coaster is only going downhill. It's been absolutely awful. We've had, ever since Margaret Thatcher smashed the unions, up until Tony Blair bringing in neoliberalism as well. It's been awful in this country for 30 years. But what can we do to really help in this country economically? So Britain, as an economy, gets around 1.3 trillion each year in taxpayer money, right? About 8.9% of that, so nearly 10% of all taxes contributed to our government goes straight on interest loans. Because of the interest, because of the loans that have been taken out and the interest that's accumulated over time, we pay roughly just under 10% of our economy to interest. So for every £10 an average person gives, £1 just goes straight to interest. So it's a very different. I'm trying to frame to show that it's a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
But in this position, we've always chosen the route of austerity. We mustn't do that. We must invest in people. So just like China's done, we have to create a new tax, a wealth tax. I do agree with, to basically accumulate enough money to invest in people in the same way I mentioned in regards to China, to invest in their skills, to invest in their housing, to invest in infrastructure. If somebody from Southampton could get a high-speed rail to London in 26 minutes or 18 minutes, why wouldn't they do it? They would do it. So people can access different types of jobs when you've invested in new infrastructure. But to talk specifically on the wealth tax, if you taxed people at 2% over £10 million, you would generate about £24 billion a year, right? So we're talking about 0.04% of people. If you tax 0.04% of people at 2% over £10 million, you would generate £24 billion a year.
Yeah.
How many schools, how many hospitals, how many trains would that build for our country? How many children would be able to have 2 or 3 meals a day? How many parents would be able to learn skills about AI infrastructure or actually just get GCSEs because they were never able to get them because of the circumstances that they grew up in? We could invest in our people by imposing the wealth tax. It is something that I agree with, but ultimately, there's still economic problems that we need to work through, like paying the interest. And it will be tough at times because even, for example, we should scrap student loans. People shouldn't be burdened with debt slavery for the rest of their life.
Okay.
But the government gets money from that. So it's difficult, but a wealth tax would definitely help empower people in this country.
Okay, on a wealth tax, this is a issue that I've been quite interested in recently. Obviously, Gary's Economics has massively popularized the idea alongside people like Zach Polanski. How do you circumvent some of the issues that come around with a wealth tax, like actually identifying how much people actually have when they're stored in things like paintings or things which are hard to measure? And then beyond that, how would you respond to the millionaires will just leave?
So the first question, it is difficult. It is very difficult. I'm not going to sit here and paint a pretty picture that everyone's going to line up to be paying tax. It will be difficult and it will take years to kind of put in place perfectly. We'll need to get really good systems to analyze people's assets. It will be difficult, but it needs to be done. So it will probably cost millions of pounds, not billions. It will cost millions of pounds. And through that process, through overcoming those challenges of identifying exactly how much wealth everybody has, you're going to be able to get that tax. But it will be difficult. But I'm sure, there'll be plenty of private companies that would line up to help us with that. And even if it was started from the ground up by the government, they'll be able to do it as well. So in terms of an analysis of taxpayers and how much wealth they have, you'll be able to do it. You're not going to get everything perfect. Even in today's economy, not everybody pays tax in the way they do. No country on earth has tax perfect and recognizes everybody's assets in their country. But you try your best. And in regards to your second question about the millionaires leaving. So that's a really good question. And the first pushback that people have is if you tax people more, millionaires will leave, right? So firstly, I want to identify who are these millionaires that we're talking about? Like, who are these guys? Because they're the same guys that criticize the wealth tax. I don't hear any working class people against the wealth tax. I mean, you said Gary's Economics mentions it. Loads of people have pushed back against the idea. Are any of them poor?
No, generally speaking, it's the upper middle class.
It's the rich, right? So if I've got money in my pocket, I don't want you to take it. And it's as simple as that. This ideology of the wealthy will leave, there won't be any more jobs. It's possible that some rich people could leave. Let's not paint an unnecessarily pretty picture. Some wealthy people could leave. But also, some of these wealthy people are just parasites on our economy. Bet365, just a small example. Bet365. What does Bet365 and the millionaires that own it contribute to this economy? They're parasites and they prey on vulnerable people to steal their money. Gambling is addictive. They addict people to something in order for them to escape from their brutal reality. And they funnel that money upwards. And then they say, if you tax me, I'm going to leave. Well, leave. We don't want people like that. But real entrepreneurs and real business people in this country that may get taxed if there is a high wealth tax, then that's just the consequences. That's the consequences. Because there's only two sides to this story. One side is you tax rich people more and some of them leave. And the other side is you don't tax them and we have generations of people, children growing up in poverty. I know which one I would rather, right? So there's two sides to that point, as I mentioned. There's the side that some people, we don't really want them in our economy anyway. They're a net negative on our economy. They're just funneling money upwards. They can leave. But maybe there could be a way of us analyzing how much these people really contribute to the economy and using that maybe like as an algorithm to tax them slightly less. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have assets over 10 million, but you employ 10,000 people in this country, then maybe we could tax you slightly less than Bet365, who just funnels money from poor people or does all of their manufacturing in China or all of their manufacturing abroad. You actually hardly employ any people in this country. So we could also do it that way. But one line that I don't like is that the rich will leave. The rich don't own us. The rich don't own this country. We voted for a government. The government runs this country. They're the one that have been endorsed by the people, not the rich. We will not be held hostage by the rich because ultimately the rich are only rich because we pay for their products. It's as simple as that. So that's my argument against it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know right now 100% where I sit on the wealth tax, but where I do sort of agree with you in terms of rich people is I do think it's a slightly overblown point. I think the assessing assets is a bit of a better critique. So I think for a lot of, like, if you're a rich person in London and your business and your whole life's in London, you've grown up in London, if tax goes up slightly, because the wealth tax still isn't a crazy amount, are you really going to down tools and leave? Like, I won't call them parasites, but I think there is a specific group of people in the UK who, yes, if taxes were to go past a certain point, they'd leave. But I say, for your average business turning over a few million, do I think they're going to down tools? Probably not, to be honest. So we'll see. Wealth tax seems to be the hot button issue. There was rumors about Gary Stevenson advising Andy Burnham. I don't know how much truth there is in that. I know Zach Polanski's also for a wealth tax. So we'll see how it goes in the future. One thing I do want to speak to you about, though, and you kind of raised the point in my mind when you spoke about how no working class people are really against wealth tax. One thing you tend to notice, right, is with the far right extreme parties, and it's not just here, it's across Europe, you actually do have a lot of working class people supporting them. So I think my question for you, as someone who's, predominantly on the left, why is it that so many working class people are drawn to right-wing politics, even though left-wing politics typically is seen as more for the people?
Well, if your name is Susan and Susan's 50 years old and Susan lives in Dagenham, Susan's lived under terrible governments for the best part of the last 30 years. Susan has seen her standard of living drop year in, year out. And at the same time, Susan has seen more immigrants in her area. And at the same time, Susan has seen this new channel, GB News. And at the same time, Susan reads the Sun newspaper. If you see one thing and you see another thing and you believe those two things could be correlated, well, your mind associates these two with each other, even if they're not necessarily associated.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that in a kind of metaphorical bird's eye view way. But to kind of zoom in a little bit, people in this country have seen their standards of living drop. They've seen immigration go up. They've been essentially brainwashed by the media, who aims to make as sensationalist news as possible to divide people and sell more papers. And they believe that the ideas that have been put forward to them are true because they see it with their own two eyes. They've seen immigration go up. So it's an easy argument to believe, right? If I'm getting poorer and immigrants are coming in, I think it's because of the immigrants. It's an easy argument to believe. There is a large chunk of the working class all over the world. You know, Trump support is largely working class as well. There's a large part of the working class that affiliate with the anti-establishment parties.
Yeah.
And these far-right parties represent themselves as groups of people who are against the status quo, against what's going on, against kind of immigration, because immigration is what's been going on. So it's kind of like a multifaceted answer that I'm giving you, I suppose. But it's an easy answer is the first question to vote for those parties, sorry. And it's an association with them being an ally rather than an elite. It's what Nigel Farage has been doing his whole career. It's why he drinks pints in pubs. It's very simple, and it has worked, and it is working. But I was talking to a reform voter the other day.
Okay.
It was an interesting conversation, and I asked her opinions on immigration. She talked to me a bit about how she's against illegal immigration, and I asked her a few questions. By the end of the conversation, she was left. She was economically left. I mean, she may still deny it to this day. She may still, I'm still a reform voter. But I said to her, look, you're against raising taxes on people like footballers because they earn such an extraordinary amount. She said, yes. Okay, you're against higher taxes if they benefit real people. Okay, well then you're a lefty. You're on the left of the spectrum. But it's difficult to kind of sit down and converse with people all the time and try to give them a broader opinion. It's easier for these people to watch TV and watch the news and hear about all of these awful things that they hear about, the fake grooming gangs and all of this stuff. So it's a bit of an easy way out for them.
Do you think, or do you feel like rather that people couldn't make the same arguments back to people on the left? Like you could say, well, you're just a liberal who's brainwashed and you're only so welcoming because of Hollywood and because of media and because of whatever or wherever you get your news from. Do you not feel like that argument could just be thrown back at your side of the political spectrum?
I mean, they could throw it back. Whether or not it'd be true is a different story. So let's talk about the most popular news agencies in this country. The Sun, right. The Daily Mail, right. GB News, right. BBC, recently, right. To name a few more off the top of my head, whoever it is. Generally, the media in this country, or the most popular forms of media, are right wing. If you want to go more left or center, who do you have? The only one that I can think of is The Guardian. Can you name me anybody else?
On that level, no, but you have your Guardians, Navarro, New Statesman. But yeah, if you're talking like the major, it's probably, The Guardian.
The Guardian, that's the only one. And The Guardian is smaller than every single right-wing organization I just mentioned. So if they want to levy that claim back to me that I'm brainwashed, well, who am I brainwashed by? Because the majority of people in this country are getting their news from a few sources, and these sources are right-wing. So I would deny it, and anybody can throw any claim at anyone. But ultimately, the opinion that I have, and a lot of people that I know, that I work with, their opinions are based on formulated facts. Right? I've got a master's in political philosophy because I wanted to learn about politics. I wanted to know what's right or what's wrong. I didn't go into politics with an already formulated view of this is how I'm going to believe and I'm going to read to support this view. I went in with an open mind. I got a formal education. I got a master's, and through my analysis and through the evidence that I've seen, I've made an opinion. This is very different from somebody who doesn't even know who the Prime Minister is. It's very different, and they vote a certain way because they see it on the news, because their next door neighbor is now brown. These are two very different arguments. But anyone can throw anything around at anyone. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
So do you think the surge of Trump supporters, the surge of reform voters is primarily down to a lack of miseducation? And then if that is the case, lack of education, and if that is the case, do you then believe there should be some sort of solution we should be moving towards for that? Do you believe there should be like an educational attainment requirement to vote, things of that nature?
I don't want to take away people's right to vote. But what we're talking about here, really the question that you asked me is about democratic deficit. It's about a failure in the democratic system, because democracy, demos, meaning the people, kratia to mean the rule of, so democracy, the rule of the people, is requires you to think twofold, right? This is like philosophy from ancient Greece, where where democracy began. Supposedly, there was before then, but anyway, it requires you to think twofold. First fold for yourself. So in democracy, I vote because it benefits me. I vote economically because my pocket becomes heavier. I vote for social care because my cousin is disabled. But secondly, it requires you to vote in accordance with other people in your community. And as we've become more individualistic through neoliberalism, people don't pay attention to what their neighbors and what their countrymen want.
Yeah.
So people are voting solely on an individual basis, and that's creating a democratic deficit. Now, I don't want to take away anybody's right to vote, but people need to be educated. An underpinning foundation of democracy is that your populace is educated. If your populace is uneducated, then unfortunately your populace will choose the wrong leader, and that's exactly what we've done. We voted for Boris Johnson, for God's sake. For Boris Johnson, the man who's had 1 million mishaps in his life, this country voted for him. It's inexcusable. Why did we vote for him? Because it's a lack of education. So we need to have informed people voting. And with our current media setup, that's impossible. And I'll give you an example. I told you at the beginning of this podcast, I'm from a Turkish Cypriot background. Born here, raised here. I'm as London as it gets. And I was walking down the street and I saw a bus. And on the bus, there was an advert. That advert said as follows. Turkey, population 80 million. And it had a passport that resembled a door. And walking into that passport/door was footprints on the floor. Okay? Now, how do you expect people to make an informed decision about Brexit when we have outrightly racist propaganda like that on the streets? They can't. So people need to be informed. The media needs to be broken up so that people can get news from a neutral source. And then we will break free from this democratic deficit that keeps leading us towards these buffoons like Boris Johnson.
What in that ad would you say was explicitly racist? What, the footsteps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, just
the footsteps. Yeah, because the passport was opened like a door, and there was footsteps going in. So the insinuation is 80 million Turks are coming to your door if they get an EU passport, right? It's an outrightly racist advert. You can't get any more racist. This was thrown around with 350 million pounds a day on all the buses and all that rubbish. But how do you expect people to vote for the correct government officials or be informed about politics when you're throwing that type of propaganda in their face? It's difficult.
What do you think the solution is in terms of, if we're saying, yes, the populace is less educated than they need to be, and that's why you believe we're ending up with suboptimal leaders, how would you then go about bringing up the education of the populace? What exactly is missing in the British education system?
Well, politics is not in the curriculum. It's crazy. How is politics, the way that we decide the future of our nation, not part of our curriculum? You don't have to study politics as a lesson in primary school or secondary school. So that's the very start. From the beginning, you give a neutral education to young people about politics, about the ramifications of political affairs, and about historical politicians which have led us down certain paths.
Do you think that's possible, though, to have a neutral education on politics?
It's impossible to make it completely neutral, but you can definitely make it as neutral as possible. So nothing is ever going to be absolutely perfectly neutral. We study history at school. We don't say we're not going to study it because it won't be perfectly neutral. We study citizenship at school. We study media at school. We study English at school. All of these concepts or lessons aren't 100% neutral, but we have to try our best to do so. So yeah, educate young people from a young age. Young people from kind of the beginning of the education system about politics and about philosophy, so that they can understand the underpinnings of politics. That's a start.
Okay.
Secondly, enforce bans on racist advertisements. Like, why is that advert allowed? the one that I talked about, why is that allowed? It's outrightly racist. So
And what was it? Was it on a bus?
it was on a bus. It was on a bus. So we need to kind of have a stricter authority which overlooks advertising and media in general to ensure that racist or discriminatory articles or adverts are not being put across.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think I misunderstood you the first time, but I got you now with the Brexit. That's a little bit surprising, just because TFL actually are usually reasonably strict with their ads. I didn't actually catch that one. I saw a lot of the 300 million saved, but yeah, that is a little bit crazy. I'll have to look into that. In terms of some of your broader beliefs, I know we've kind of alluded to it a little bit throughout this conversation around neoliberalism, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. So could you talk a little bit about maybe a quick definition of neoliberalism in your own words, because it's a bit of a catch-all term, and then why exactly you think it's been so destructive for Britain today?
Okay, so neoliberalism, first we need to define capitalism. I'll run over it very, very quickly because I know we're limited on time. Capitalism is an economic system in which people own the means of production, right? So if we have capitalism in any given country, I can open a factory, I can employ you, you can work for me, you can get paid, and you can make me money in the meantime, right? That's just traditional capitalism, what we've lived under for the past few hundred years. Neoliberalism is capitalism on steroids every day of the week, twice on Sundays. So in neoliberalism, the economy and money isn't a means to an end. It's an end in itself. So I'll give you a good example. Obama, in 2008, in his inaugural speech, gave a fantastic speech, talked about things that I really, really agree with, and really support. Housing, solving homelessness, creating jobs, all of these fantastic ideas. He framed them in a different context, though. He framed them in the context of contributing to GDP, right? So this is what neoliberalism is. In neoliberalism, money is God. We view money as God at the moment. You asked me earlier, you said, but what about those people that say the rich will leave? Imagine saying that. Imagine you can't implement a policy in your own country as the government because the rich hold you hostage. That's neoliberalism. This is the system that we're living under. So that's one side of neoliberalism, which is money as the be-all and end-all of existence.
Yeah.
There's another side which is kind of a part two to this. Actually, I'll quickly run through deregulation as well before I get there. Own as little as possible as a government, deregulate the economy, privatize everything. The market rules. The market is king. But now on to the next point. Because money has become God under neoliberalism, people have become more individualistic. And everything that people do is thinking about money, not necessarily today, not necessarily tomorrow, but in the future. People are branding themselves. You're not a person anymore. You're a commodity. The person you fall in love with, your family, where you come from, the clothes that you wear, the Instagram posts that you make, where you eat. It's all about creating a brand, an image of wealth or uniqueness within this wealth system. It's all framed around the idea of money. And this is not traditional capitalism. This is not the capitalism that people lived through in 1940 or 1960. This is, it's almost a prison, right? We are born to work, to pay taxes, to build our own brand as entrepreneurs and hustle to make money in any way possible, as long as it's not against money, and just float through the system as consumers, which just take. And this individualism that I'm talking about, this kind of like life journey that neoliberalism has created, it's ruining our society, man. Like, where's the community? I see on Instagram all the time. I see on social networking all the time. You do you. You don't owe no one nothing. That's what people are screaming online. You owe everybody something. Everybody's contributed to this society. Your parents raised you, and if they didn't, somebody raised you, somebody helped you, somebody guided you, somebody mentored you. This idea of individualism created by neoliberalism has been the destruction of our communities, of our families. People are so quick to give up on each other. People are so quick to walk over each other just for a quick pound. Who have we become? Right? So I'll finish this neoliberalism point with a quick fact.
Yeah.
If you condense the UK into 100 people and there was £100, right? So we're exactly replicating UK wealth distribution, but to make it simple, 100 people and £100. 10 people would have £57. The bottom 50 people would be fighting over a fiver, right? This is neoliberalism, capitalism on steroids. Capitalism was not designed to have such great wealth inequality, but that wealth inequality is a signature of neoliberalism.
Okay. So for you, the problems of neoliberalism go beyond its financial and economic implications, it's social as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's almost one of the defining features. Absolutely.
Okay. On that, I guess we haven't really touched on this yet. What are your actual feelings on capitalism? You don't strike me as a communist, but where would you say you sit, like socialist?
You know, I don't like to indulge in these terms.
Okay.
Because I think they're unnecessarily divisive.
Yeah.
If I sit here and say, I'm a socialist, I believe in socialist principles, that will straight away put me against the people on the right, the reform voters. That's like, this guy's he's a stupid commie, he's this, he's that. If I'm going to put myself on the spectrum, if I'm going to give myself an overarching slogan, motto, brand, whatever you will, I'll say I'm a person who believes that these levels of economic inequality are wrong. There's too many rich people. There's too many poor people. We're fighting over crumbs. Look at the high streets, man. All the shops are closed. Look at the way that people are treating each other. No love. People are desperate because the rich have funneled all the money upwards. They've got all the property, they've got all the wealth. As I said, if our economy was just 100 people, 50 people would fight over a fiver. So I don't want to brand myself, sit here and say, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, I'm a capitalist. I'm a people's person. That's what I believe in. People should have the right to lead a minimally flourishing lifestyle. They should have the ability to make something of themselves. And that is not possible in these circumstances, in these economic inequality circumstances. It's what we need to stop.
Okay, well, fair enough. I get what you mean there. Speaking of socialists, let's talk about a business-friendly socialist. Andy Burnham got sworn in as PM yesterday. What's your thoughts on Burnham, his politics, optics for the future of Britain? Do you think we're going towards a better place now?
We're going to have to wait and see. You know, I don't like to speculate on things that I can't be sure about. He's made his cabinet selection. It's not looking too good. So I'm not going to sit here and give a concrete opinion on what I think is going to happen. But based on the evidence that we've been given, based on the cabinet positions which he's proposed, which is fulfilled, based on his history, I think it's unlikely that an angelic economy fixer, an angelic social fixer is going to come from that type of system. But we'll give him time. I don't have much faith, but good luck to him.
Okay, well, in terms of his core ideas, because let's pause foreign policy there. Let's say all he does ever is just improve things at home. That would still be a positive change, right? How do you feel about decentralizing things from London? I gather from our conversation earlier about the high-speed trains to Southampton to London, that's something you'd broadly be in favor of?
Yeah, I mean, decentralized system allows you to take approaches which are more tailored towards certain local populations. So generally it's good. But I mean, what are Andy Burnham's proposals? He hasn't given any. I mean, he's talked about doing a new 10 Downing Street in Manchester.
Yeah.
He's talked about scrapping digital ID.
Yeah.
What else has he really said? He hasn't said anything major. He said he's going to help people. He did say one more thing as well. He reduced VAT on electricity from 5 to 0%. But none of these things are grand economic strategies, right? He said he's going to bring stuff out, and I'm sure he will, but we don't know yet. So you say, what do you think about the stuff that he has released? He hasn't released much. It's more aura. You know, it's more vibes at the moment. And people are buying into those vibes, and people will buy into those vibes. Partly because he does have some charisma to him, partly because they had to Keir Starmer. But I can't sit here and say I support his policies because there are none. He's said a few nice things generally. He hasn't said anything policy-wise yet, really.
Okay. Fast forward to 2029. Burnham Labour, Farage reform. Do you think he beats reform?
I think Jeremy Corbyn and your party beats them both. That's the best answer.
Del, thank you for coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure having you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.